Hello, everyone. A very good morning to you all. My name is Bhumi Patel, and I'll be the moderator for this webinar. So, of course, I had displayed on the screen the house rules and how to, navigate through the Microsoft Teams application. So, I think it's time to begin, and I would like to now, at this point, invite our keynote speaker to say a few words to initiate this webinar. So please, our keynote speaker, Mr. Jaswin Shah, please, you're most welcome.
Uh, Good morning, and thank you, Bhumi. Good morning to all our dearest and dynamic clients, colleagues, friends, and associates who have joined us on this webinar. I, on behalf of the leadership of Grant Thornton Uganda, wants to extend a warm welcome to all of you. We hope and pray that you and your families are doing safe and remaining great. As part of our commitment to deliver exceptional services to our clients and the communities at large, we are coming up with various webinars to share our knowledge with all of you. Today's subject is withholding tax and VAT withholding regime in Uganda. We are all aware that VAT withholding regime is new, and we decided to proactively come and present to you what our understanding of the expectations of the regulations are. As we are all aware that improved and consistent compliances of tax laws is taking a center stage in the strategies of URA, Ministry of Finance, and the government of Uganda. It's extremely important for all of us to understand the compliance expectations and ensure that we all fully remain compliant and contribute to our nation. And also, the compliances are important to avoid any penalties or any enforcement actions by the tax authorities. I would really like to thank our tax experts, and as we call it internally, our tax compliance and consulting teams, for coming up with this webinar. And we hope all of you will enrich your knowledge by attending this webinar. With that, I really want to once again thank you all for attending in these big numbers, which definitely motivates us to do more and more such webinars. Once again, thank you very much, and we wish you that you will be able to attend and enrich your knowledge. Thank you. Bhumi, back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shah. So before I invite our presenters for this webinar, I would like to just remind everyone that just similar to our previous webinars, we're going to have a question and answer session towards the end. And so please feel free to use the chat box to post your questions, and we'll definitely, answer them during our question and answer session. So at this juncture, I would like to, we have two presenters who are going to be, taking us through this entire presentation on withholding and VAT withholding tax regimes. So our first presenter is a chartered accountant from India and a manager with Grant Thornton with broad experience in providing both tax compliance and consulting services. He brings on board 10 years of professional experience. He has a vast experience in diverse sectors, including renewable energy, healthcare, manufacturing, trading, NGOs, and financial services, enabling him to steer growth and development of our clients to the most practical and realistic solutions. Over the years, he has led on numerous tax exemptions, private rulings, URA audit management, objection management, opinion engagements, mergers, and acquisitions. So please allow me to welcome Ankit Jangla.
Thank you, Bhumi. Thank you, Mr. Shah. Good morning, all of you once again. As introduced by Mr. Shah, today's topic is about withholding and VAT withholding regimes in Uganda. Very quickly, I will like to go through the contents of our presentation in a brief manner. So, today we are going to understand the concept of withholding tax, various transactions on which withholding tax becomes applicable in Uganda, the compliance expectations under this regime, and also withholding tax applicable to some specific industries. With this small background, I straight away would like to go to understand the concept of withholding tax. So what is withholding tax? Withholding tax is an income tax which is deducted at source by a recipient of a service or goods. Withholding tax in Uganda is also applicable at the time of importation of goods, where an importer is supposed to pay withholding tax at the border when goods are going to be entered in Uganda. With this small background on concept of withholding tax, I would like to take you through the details of the transaction on which it is applicable. But before going over there, would also like to mention my thrust or emphasis on some few key definitions, like definition of a payment. What does payment mean? Payment means any amount paid or payable in cash or kind. So definition of payment is very, very significant since it has a large implications while complying with withholding tax law. Another definition, key definition, is Ugandan source service contract. What does this definition say and why it is important? Ugandan, what as per the Income Tax Act of Uganda, there are transactions of international nature, means wherever an international payments are made and such transactions fall within the ambit of withholding tax regime, the importer or the recipient of a service is expected to withhold the tax. Now, Ugandan source service contract lays down the definition of a contract where the service is supposed to raise the revenue or service is supposed to give rise to revenue being sourced from Uganda. We will definitely cover these points in our subsequent slides. Another definition is the definition of beneficial owner. This definition has gone through a amendment even in the latest act, which was amended in July, which we were able to take you through in our previous budget presentation. But we will definitely cover what is its relevance in the subsequent slides. With this small introduction to the applicable definitions, I would like to go through a very first set of transaction where withholding tax becomes applicable. So withholding tax on import of goods. Now, whenever, like I mentioned previously, whenever an importer imports the goods, or the taxpayer is anticipated to pay 6% of the value of goods ascertained for custom duties purpose as withholding tax. This withholding tax is available as tax credit while making the corporate tax payment. Withholding tax is not, this withholding tax is not applicable in certain cases. Cases where the importer is exempt from withholding tax, or when the importation is for import of agricultural supplies, or where the taxpayer himself is exempt from corp tax. Moving on to the next part, withholding tax on international transactions. Now, these sections are covered this from 83 to 86 in the Income Tax Act. What does they say? Any international payment in nature of dividend, interest, royalty, rent, natural resource payment, management charge attracts withholding tax. Let's say a payment of interest to a non-resident person who is not a financial institution will attract withholding tax of 15%. Now, withholding tax of 15% also needs to pass through a test of DTA, means countries with whom Uganda has entered into the double tax avoidance agreements, the beneficial rates or the rates as per DTA becomes applicable in those scenarios. Then interest on government securities, 20% in case where the maturity period is less than 10 years, and 10% in the case where maturity period is more than 10 years. Like I mentioned, withholding tax on interest is not applicable when an interest payment is made to a financial institution. Moving on, public entertainers or sports person, 15% withholding tax. Contractors or professionals, again 15% withholding tax applicable. Now, shipping and road transport. This becomes very critical since almost all of us have to uh, encounter this section. So what, as per section 86 and reading with other sections of Income Tax Act, any non-resident person who is into the business of carriage of transport, or a car who is into the business of transporting cargo, and when a cargo embarks from Uganda, means the journey for cargo starts from Uganda, then in that case 2% withholding tax is supposed to be deducted if the cargo or the transport operator is a non-resident person. If the cargo embarks from outside Uganda, means a journey commences from outside Uganda and the transport operator is a non-resident person, then no withholding tax is expected to be deducted. Withholding tax in case of internet services or telecommunication services provided by non-residents is at 5%. Another thing, withholding, let's say as a resident of Uganda, I am buying a property or an asset from a non-resident person, then in that case, the resident person is expected to deduct 10% withholding tax. And in such cases, the withholding tax deducted is not a final tax, means a non-resident person is expected to make further compliance and pay any balance tax after taking credit of this withholding tax. We will definitely cover the concept of final tax, WHT, as a final tax in our subsequent slides. Moving on to our next part of the presentation. When I was referring to applicability of WHT rates when payments are made to non-resident, I highlighted double tax avoidance agreements country, means the countries with whom Uganda has entered into DTAAs. There are somewhat 9 countries with whom Uganda has entered into DTAs, and the nature of transactions we have tried to summarize over here in the table with the taxpayers from those countries and what would be the applicable rates. Now, when we started this presentation and we were referring to the definition section, I told that beneficial owner would be covered in subsequent slide. Now, why does the definition of beneficial owner assume significance? Let's say Uganda has a DTAA with India, but if the payment is being made to the Indian company whose beneficial owners or whose owners are not the original residents of India, then the advantages of reduced rates are not available, means the rate as per domestic tax law will remain applicable in those scenarios. So in order to for the smooth facilitation of understanding and resolving the queries, if any, which comes to a taxpayer's mind, we have tried to lay down some FAQs. So like when I mentioned that whenever a cargo commences its journey from outside Uganda and the cargo operator is a non-resident, then no withholding tax is applicable. But in a situation, vice versa situation, where the journey commences from Uganda, 2% WHT becomes applicable. While this is our understanding on basis of our interpretation of Income Tax Act, but we have seen the instances in past where revenue authorities have taken a contradictory position and the taxpayers were demanded 15% deduction in this kind of a cases. Moving on to the next part of presentation, this is a very dear part to us, and this has its occurrence for each and every taxpayer. Now, any taxpayer who has been designated as a withholding tax agent, so such taxpayer is expected to deduct 6% withholding tax on any supplies received if the supplier is not WHT exempt and the aggregate value of supplies are over and above Uganda shillings 1 million. You can refer to the list of designated agents on the URA portal. We have also tried to attach the link for those things in this part of presentation, which would definitely be shared with the participants. I would again like to mention on supply of agricultural goods, withholding tax is not applicable. Some FAQs over here. What does how do you arrive or how do you derive to a limit of Uganda shilling 1 million? Like I mentioned, an aggregate value of supplies has to be considered. Now, what does that aggregate value of supply means? These things have been mentioned in practice note. So an aggregate value of supply means when it is reasonably to be expected that the goods or materials or services would be ordinarily be supplied as a single supply. So even if there are multiple transactions, but it could be expected that this has come as a part of one supply, then in those scenarios withholding tax becomes applicable even though each invoice is below Uganda shillings 1 million. Biggest question: when is the liability to deduct withholding tax? Is it on actual payment, actual payment, or is it at the time of booking of expenditure? So like I mentioned, section 2 assumes the significance, and that is where it comes to play over here. As per the definition of section 2, because payment includes any amount which is actually paid or payable, and therefore withholding tax has to be deducted on actual payment or credit, whichever is earlier. In the instances when the WHT, when the commissions are paid to an air travel agent, WHT becomes applicable. In the instances where there are premium payments to be made through an agent of insurance companies, in those scenarios, WHT is not applicable. You will be able to go through these FAQs in detail, which are quite self-explanatory, as we believe, when these presentations are shared with you. Next part. Circumstances where withholding tax becomes applicable even though the transactions are taking place between two resident taxpayers and the payer is not a designated WHT agent. Such kind of transactions can be interest, dividends, professional fees. Now, interest. So in the scenarios where the interest is paid and it is paid to a person other than natural person, then 15% WHT becomes applicable. Again, no WHT to be deducted when an interest payment is made to a financial institution. No interest on WHT to be, no WHT on interest to be deducted when a payment is made, when the interest is paid to an associate company. Means a company which holds the more than 50% of shareholding or voting power in the payer company. Dividend payments to a resident shareholders, 15% in case of a privately held companies, and 10% in case of public listed companies. Dividend payments again between the two associate companies who are residents and have 25% or more of voting power in common. No WHT on dividend is applicable. Professional fees. This is an important why, because all of us encounter payments for professional fees, legal fees in our routine course of business. So in those scenarios, even though you are not appointed as a designated agent, you have to deduct withholding tax at 6% if the service provider is not WHT exempt, even though the amount paid is below 1 million Uganda shillings. Other very important part of withholding tax is payment for purchase of a business or business asset, and the transaction is between the two residents. This has been a new insertion. New insertion means somewhere it was introduced in 2018. Now, in those scenarios, 6% WHT becomes applicable. This remains applicable even if payee is exempt from withholding tax or payer is not a designated withholding agent. Some FAQs pertaining to above sections, which we have tried to cover. What could be termed as professional services? Now, if we refer to practice note along with relevant sections, the professional services have been very clearly defined. Means it can be said that anybody providing dental, medical, architectural, engineering, accounting services, etc., etc. So what could be termed as professional services must pass through the test of this definition. Like I mentioned, what happens if a payment to a professional service provider is below 1 million Uganda shillings? Like I mentioned, yes, again, WHT becomes applicable if the service provider is not a WHT exempt. What happens if a resident company buys a business asset, means a land, building, plant and machinery, IT equipments, office equipments for purpose of their business? So in those cases, 6% WHT has to be deducted. What happens if me or you as an individual buy these assets like car, electronic gadgets from another resident person? Because we are going to buy it for our own use and not the business use, WHT is not applicable. Now, again, I would like to bring something to the attention of the participants. While this is as per our understanding of law, we have definitely seen the instances where the contradictory positions have been adopted by various authorities at URA. So before entering into such kind of a transaction, it becomes very important to consult a tax agent or a professional to ascertain the exact WHT impact. So when I started my presentation, I mentioned that we also would cover the applicability of WHT to specific industries. Now, those specific industries are, let's say, betting or gaming. So any person who is into the business of betting or gaming and who makes the payment on account of the games being played for betting or winning, then in such instances, 15% withholding tax becomes applicable. Now, an insurance company which pays a reinsurance premium to a non-resident person, what happens in this case? In this case, 10% withholding tax is applicable and it has to be deducted on gross amount of payment. Payments of commissions to the telecom service providers. Say a taxpayer is into the business of distribution of airtime, mobile money, etc., etc. So then in those instances, the telecom companies, while making the payments to such a taxpayer, would deduct 10% withholding tax. Again, this 10% withholding tax is going to be a final tax in case of an individual. But for taxpayers other than individual, this will be available as a tax credit while making the payment for overall income tax liability. Moving on to mining or petroleum licensee, 15% withholding applicable on participatory dividends, commission paid to insurance agent. When I was discussing previously in this part of presentation, I was discussing about premiums being paid to an insurance company agents through means a premium paid to insurance companies through an agent. Over here, a commission being paid to an insurance agent by a insurance company itself. Then in that case, 10% withholding tax is applicable. Similarly, any commission being paid to an advertising agent, 10% withholding tax becomes applicable. So when I was discussing various parts of this presentation, I was at multiple places I had referred to withholding tax as a final tax, withholding tax as a final tax. So what is withholding tax as a final tax? Under what circumstances or in which set of transactions does withholding tax become a final tax? Let's learn this. So in case of an interest payment on treasury bills or other government securities by Bank of Uganda to any person. So in that instances, WHT deducted by BOU becomes the final tax. Now, any WHT deducted by a financial institution while making an interest payment to a resident individual, in that case, that WHT is a final tax. WHT, like I mentioned very much recently, WHT on airtime commission being paid to an individual by a telecom operator. Then in that case, again, the WHT is a final tax. Then WHT being paid to resident individual shareholder, then in that instance also WHT is a final tax. Now what is the significance of WHT as a final tax? The simple significance is that there is no further liability which the recipient of income is expected to account for towards corp tax once this deduction on account of WHT is done. This deduction, this income is not aggregated in the chargeable income. Also, one more point to note, there would be no refund of this WHT being deducted. Moving on to other part of presentation, which comprises of withholding tax exemption procedures, requirements, and other compliance requirements under both withholding and VAT laws would be taken over by my colleague Rikin Shah. Over to you, Bhumi, for introducing the participants.
Thank you, Ankit Bhai, for the same. Now going on to the next session of the presentation, where our second presenter is going to take over. So he's a chartered accountant from India as well, and a manager with Grant Thornton with broad experience in providing both tax compliance and consulting services. He also brings on board 14 years of professional experience, and including 10 years specifically in industry. He has vast experience in diverse sectors such as consumer products, financial services, manufacturing, real estate, enabling him to steer growth and development of our clients to the most practical and realistic solutions. Over the years, he has worked on numerous assignments, including tax compliance, planning, computations, interpretations, representations before the tax and the appellate authorities, So at this point, please allow me to welcome Rikin Shah.
Hi, thank you, Bhumi, for a very kind introduction. Thank you, Ankit, for a great insightful guidance on the withholding tax regime. Good morning, everyone, and I once again would like to warm welcome to you all. Thank you for sparing time for attending this important webinar. We have heard from Ankit what is the applicability of withholding tax on various type of transactions that the taxpayer required to enter in their day-to-day commercial affairs. We have seen its applicability based on the residential status of the seller and even the status of buyer being designated agent or not. He also gave us an understanding on the DTA agreement, double taxation avoidance agreements, and their impacts on the rates and applicability of WST. Now, as a prudent commercial entity, you will all agree that a business may wish to defer its liability of using its limited resources in most efficient manner. Although the income tax and VAT payable is a debt to the government, a taxpayer, within the means of the law, of course, will always try to postpone the payment of this debt. Let us now discuss on how the taxpayers can benefit from the provisions within the law, even if the supplies and imports are subject to deductibility of the withholding tax and VAT withholding tax. As we all are aware, for the compliant taxpayers, there is a window of opportunity to get a relief from being deducted the portion of their payments as withholding tax or VAT withholding tax and reserve a very valuable assets for the business operations, that is cash. Okay. As we can see, and we are all aware, uh, on the slide, section 119, subsection 5F2 of the Income Tax Act gives powers to the Commissioner of URA to exempt any taxpayer from withholding tax where the Commissioner is satisfied that this supplier or importer is complied with the obligations imposed on them under this Act. Although there are some exceptions to this exemption, overall, it is a great privilege provided by the law. This motivates and encourages the taxpayers to remain tax compliant. The exceptions are currently appearing on your screen. And as Ankit and Bhumi have stated, we are going to share this presentation to all the attendees for the future references. And at that time, you can be guided by this presentation. So I believe I don't need to go into further details of the exceptions and the importance of the withholding tax exemptions. Uh, Procedure. So how do we apply or how do we get the maximum benefit that is awarded and by the law to any compliance taxpayers? So a procedure in terms of procedure, a taxpayer who is desirous of seeking WST exemption shall make an annual application. Now, most of you would still remember the initial rejections that we received by all the taxpayers against the WST exemption applications made to URA for these ongoing seasons. Since awarding this exemption is completely at the discretion of the commissioner, URA took full advantage of encouraging all the taxpayers to correct and improve their tax compliances whenever possible before issuing the approval to WST exemptions for this period. So we, as Grant Thornton, we feel going forward, some stringent approach shall be followed by URA, especially when the VAT withholding exemptions applications will also be reviewed along with the WST exemption applications. Yeah, so that in terms of the requirement, there are certain guidelines which are provided by URA for a taxpayer to be to apply for WST exemption for themselves. Now these guidelines are for guiding can be used as a guiding principle for becoming the compliant taxpayers, and this is not an exhaustive list. For example, last year there was some more criterias that were added for checking the compliance of the taxpayer, which include like on the slide, you can see in the last para, that is the additional requirement of exemption, which are currently reviewed by URA. We all know that the IFRIS is recently implemented for all the taxpayers in Uganda. So IFRIS related queries were raised before the WST exemptions were granted. Then, reconciliations of the various returns or the submissions that the taxpayers are making to URA, along with the third party submissions related to your transactions are checked by URA. And if there are any variances, URA has come up with those queries. Then yes, the directors not declaring income for the multiple companies was, pain this time to explain the URA that either these directors are non-resident or why, or what is the reason for these directors not declaring income. So then the non-declaration of TIN number of the employees in your pay returns. So yes, we are all aware about the kind of queries we all have received this time around, and we suggest all of our clients and the taxpayers in Uganda to be remain mindful of these queries, and going forward work on this so that next exemption period between July 2020 to June 2023, we should have no compliance gaps, or at least the minimum compliance gaps, so that we can explain the URA, or we can demonstrate our a willingness to be 100% compliant. Yeah. Okay, so now exemption I have explained, and now we can go to the VAT withholding concept, applicability, and mechanism. Now, this we all know this is the hottest discussion topic going around between the taxpayers these days, VAT withholding. It is important to understand the background, milestones, and storyline of how this regime has come through to us since past 3 years. Now, VAT withholding regulations are governed by Section 5, subsection 2 of VAT Act, along with VAT Tax Withholding Regulation 2018. Why I'm giving these minute details is I'm just referencing this so that you can go back to the law and read these relevant sections or the regulations, so that you have better idea and make sure that your organizations are complied with the laws. So as we can see on the slide, URA has not currently issued any public notice on VAT withholding mechanism till date. But however, this has now been started, and since September month, we have seen the designated agents who are appointed for VAT withholding purpose have now started receiving emails from URA officers stating you need to start now complying with these regulations, and you need to start deducting the VAT withholding from the payments to your suppliers. So in terms of the important timelines, I would like to jog through very quickly on that. Yes, the VAT withholding regime were initially introduced in Uganda in 2018, and the list of designated taxpayers were also issued in the same month. However, even it was followed for 3 months, like July, August, September, people, designated agents did deduct the withholding VAT and deposited the same to URA and issued the VAT withholding credit certificates at that time. However, the regulations that came with huge compliance enforcement challenges for taxpayers as well as URA, and including the cash flow constraints that we all are aware. And so based on these challenges, the finance minister revoked the list of designated taxpayers for the purpose of VAT withholding in September 2018 itself. So yes, the designated agents list were revoked. However, the regulation or the law was always there. So it is important to note that the law stands. However, it was inactive because of the absence of the designation of the agents. Now, in May 2020, the Ministry of Finance did issue a gazette, publish a gazette, including a list of 1,025 taxpayers as a VAT withholding agents. Now, these taxpayers have now started receiving the emails from URA, as I stated before. So only the major difference and important difference from 2018 to 2020 is that initially your ministry suggested that we need to deduct 100% of the VAT output from the customers from the suppliers payments. However, this has been now revised to 6%, which is plus for the taxpayers. Yeah, so to easily for easy understanding of the whole process, how the compliance will be taken care of for any business in Uganda, for a simple understanding, we have attempted to make this small process flowchart. So if we see the first table, very briefly, if I can explain, if any taxable supplies happens, we need to check. First thing is if the buyer is a VAT withholding agent or not. If no, we are just going in a usual manner in terms of VAT compliances. No VAT withholding is applicable, and normal VAT returns and payments or processes will be followed. Now, if the buyer is a designated VAT withholding agent, then what? Then the second condition we need to check is if the supplier is VAT withholding exempt or not. Again, if yes, then normal process. If no, so after having these two conditions checked, if the suppliers is not an exempt supplier for the VAT purposes, withholding purposes, now buyer has to withhold 6% of the taxable value from the payment to the supplier. And then buyer has to deposit this tax withheld to URA in the subsequent month before the 15th, as we all know, declaring the same in section G1 of his monthly VAT return. Now we have to be mindful that doing these two processes, what we need to do in terms of record keeping, keep the records of the payment and furnish the same to the supplier with an acknowledgement of the payment in a form and manner prescribed by the commissioner. However, since as we discussed that these regulations are now URA is advising very recently for the designated agent to follow, still commissioner has not come up with the exact process or the documentation that we need to give to their supplier. So we might have to wait for the same. How a supplier can claim a credit? A supplier to claim a credit on this said VAT by declaring the same in section G2 of his monthly VAT return. Mind well, these sections are always there in the VAT returns since 2018. So and the minute integrity, minute details of this filing of the returns will be covered in the subsequent slides. And we have given a list of VAT withholding exempted taxpayers, a link to the list in our presentation. So when you get the presentation, you can click on that and get this the whole list of the VAT withholding exempted taxpayers. Now, obviously, to summarize kind of all the points that we need to always keep in mind in terms of VAT withholding regime are summarized here. So first point is the obligation to withhold VAT applies irrespective whether the designated agent or the supplier is in a VAT payable or credit position in the month. So we all know the after impact or of this particular point, that even if in few of the cases when the suppliers are in a VAT credit position for any particular month or even with the offset carried forward from the previous month, it will not impact the deduction of the 6% VAT withholding by their customers. Yes, this will give rise to either refunds, and we are hoping that and we are hopeful that because of the implementation of IFRS regime this year, from January this year, we are hoping that the refund process will be fast enough and if efficient enough, so that we can get this the taxpayers who are in a credit position can apply for the refund and go through the required audit of the documents, and URA can fastly process the refunds. For that purpose, the Grant Thornton tax team is always available for the support if at all required. Second point I would say is VAT withholding will be in addition to the 6% WHT on the goods and services above 1 million shilling, unless the supplier is exempted from VAT from WHT. This has been explained by Ankit in very details. The third is a designated person shall, upon making the payment for a taxable supply and deducting tax from the payment, keep the records of the payment and the tax deduction in the form and manner prescribed by the commissioner. We have discussed this. The taxable person can apply for VAT withholding exemption along with the income tax withholding exemptions. As I mentioned, yeah, we feel that the criterias will be more stringent now onwards for checking the compliances, because now the taxpayers are going to get two exemptions in one application. However, it is in the benefit of the taxpayer to apply for WST and VAT withholding and get these exemptions, so that the working capital can be utilized in the business in the most efficient manner. The designated person shall making the payment upon making the payment for taxable supply, furnish the supplier with an acknowledgement of the payment in a form and manner as prescribed, as the commissioner may prescribe. We might have to wait for further guidance, probably a public notice and public notice from URA, so that we can effectively apply or comply with this regime. Now, the last point, but very important point, is where there is no tax withheld during a period of 3 consecutive tax periods, the VAT withholding agent shall notify the commissioner in writing stating that no tax was withheld during the period. Now, why this is important is there is a list of 1025 taxpayers who are VAT withholding agent. Now, there is a very, very low possibility that in 3 months of your operations, you have not dealt with a supplier from whom you are required to withhold the VAT and deposit to URA. So URA, to make sure that we are complied or designated agents are complying with the regulations, they want them to remain, remain insightful that if we have not deducted the VAT for 3 months, we need to notify the commissioner in writing. Yeah. Okay, so some of the FAQs we have tried to design ourselves, and definitely many of our clients have gotten back to us who are designated agents, and they have asked a few questions to us, and we have tried to put it on a slide so that it can be used for the further guidance. So obviously the first question in everyone's mind is from which date the VAT withholding is applicable. I would say yes, VAT withholding is applicable from May 2020. However, as of now, URA has not advised or make attempt to enforce them since that date, and URA has just recently come up in last month only. So I would say there is no actual date from which the regulations are, we have to follow. However, we suggest all of our clients who are designated withholding agents, we need to start complying with this regulation as soon as possible. What are the penalties for non-compliance? So again, there are no penalties for non-compliance specifically defined for VAT withholding regime. However, in absence of the same, we understand that the normal penalties and for the non-compliance provisions will be applicable, which are already there in the VAT Act. Now, when is the 6% of the taxable value of the supplies to be deposited to URA? Now, Section 5(2) of the VAT Act provides that a withholding of the tax on the payment for the taxable supplies. Although Ankit has explained that in income tax, withholding tax is payable at the time of payment or at the time of booking of the expense. Contrary to that, in VAT Act, there is no definition of the payment. And even if as per our understanding currently, it will be deducted from the payment. So it will be on the actual payment. When would the taxpayer be able to claim the VAT that is withheld by the customer? Now, the customer who is designated agent requires to deduct 6% from your payment of the taxable supplies and deposit to URA within 15 days as a normal process. And then the designated agent will provide the forms and payment details in a prescribed form and manner as guided by the commissioner, will be given it to them. And the next month, when the credit details are available with the taxpayer, then they can apply for the credit of this withheld tax. What happens when the supply is exempted or zero rated or deemed VAT supply? So the designated agent does not have to withhold any portion of the payment because there is no VAT applicable on this particular supplies. Okay, so this was majorly covered for the VAT withholding. Yeah, let us try and understand what are the compliance expectations under WST and VAT withholding regime. Yeah, so we have tried to segregate the compliance requirements in three criteria, as I would say. First, when the withholding tax when the taxpayer is not a withholding tax agent. So when you are not a withholding tax agent, you need to submit your returns within the 15 days after the end of the month. Only if when you have deducted a withholding tax and you need to declare any of the transactions to URA and deposit that withholding tax to URA. Now, in terms of consequences or the non-compliance, non-filing of the WST returns leads to the penalty of UGX 200,000 per month for every month of delay. Now, if the taxpayer is an agent, then it is very important for us to understand that if we are withholding tax agent, although we are not deducting or we are not entering into any transactions which requires us to deduct the withholding tax, still we have to file the return every month without fail. Why? Because we have seen from the URA's approach that if you are withholding tax agent and you are not filing any return, there is a risk of URA raising a default assessment. And we all know that it is a lengthy process for us to clear the assessments from our accounts. And to avoid that kind of objection process or assessment process, we need to make sure that if we are withholding tax agent, we need to file a return every month without fail. If no transaction, nil return can be filed. Now, apart from filing of the returns, what are the non-compliance consequences of a non-compliance? So for applicable to all the taxpayers. So payment of tax withheld, yes, within 15 days, you have to make sure that you are paying that, depositing rather the tax to URA. And if we are not doing that, the interest at 2% per month is charged. In terms of deduction of withholding tax, every person required to deduct withholding tax under the income tax act as prescribed in section 456 at the rate prescribed on the credit or payment, whichever is earlier. And in case of failure, withholding tax 2% interest has to be paid. Yeah, next. Delivery of tax credit certificate. Every person who has deducted the withholding tax during a month shall deliver to the pay a tax credit certificate. And this we are all following as a designated agent right now in Kampala and Uganda. Consequences of non-compliance is who fails to issue a credit certificate commits an offense and is liable on a conviction to a fine not exceeding 25 currency points. One currency point is 20,000 shillings, so 500,000 shillings. Records of payments and tax withheld. Every person shall maintain and keep for the inspection of URA. Always will keep the records available, and penal tax and offences are listed down, which can guide us. Yeah, when the presentations will be shared. And there is how the WST return should be filed electronically through portal. The link we have tried to provide in the presentation itself. Okay, so monthly filing of WST is these are the FAQs we have tried to again put. Is every taxpayer is required to file WST returns every month, even if no WST is deducted? As I explained before, yes, if you are a designated agent, and if you don't file a return, you are at a risk of receiving the default assessment. Yeah. Is the TIN number of the resident pay mandatorily while filing of the monthly WST return? We say yes, it is mandatory. Yeah. Now, in terms of filing of the VAT returns under the new regime coming up to us, VAT withholding. We have tried to put some guidance in the presentation itself. So as we can see on our screen, the first screenshot is schedule 1 for the output text. We all use it, so we don't need to go into further details. Schedule 2A is the input text that we are claiming from URF on a monthly basis. Now, there is a section called section G1, details of VAT withheld payable. So that means from your supplier's payment, withholding VAT that you are withholding on a monthly basis, you need to list it down here and declare. Section G2 is for claiming the VAT withholded by your customers and to get to claim that them as a credit. So once you put those details in all 4 sections, as I explained, your section H, which is a summary of the calculation of tax payment, will look like something like this. As you can see, output tax charge minus input tax charge, any offset carried forward, you will have the total VAT payable. Then, as we can see in the 5th row, less tax withheld claimable, which is coming from section G2. If after deducting the amount from there, the net is VAT payable for the month. And you need to be mindful that when you raise a PRN for this, you need to select value added tax for payment of this tax. Now, as we can see in section B3, H3, the VAT withheld section, VAT that you have withheld from your customers, from your suppliers payment will be appearing here, and that is payable directly without having any linkage to section section H1. So this 60,000 as appear on the screen is payable, and we have to be mindful again that we select a PRN as VAT withhold PRN and not VAT PRN. What will otherwise the consequences will be like in your ledgers and your even your ledgers that is maintained by URA, it will not reflect properly, and we all know that ledger reconciliation exercise is becoming difficult these days. So it is better to be mindful of selecting the tax head properly when you make your tax payments. Okay, that was all from my side on VAT withholding regime, and I would get back to Bhumi for further explanation on the webinar. Thank you.
So thank you, Rikin, for taking us through this very informative session. I believe we have all picked up, a lot of information about withholding and VAT withholding tax regimes in Uganda. I think it's now time for our question and answer session. So I would like to open up the floor to everyone so that we can answer your questions. I believe that all the questions in the chat have already been responded to. So I would request whoever has a question, please raise their hand so that we can give you an opportunity to speak up.
Bhumi, no questions. So I believe that the presenters did their job very well.
Yes. So maybe we can just run through the couple of questions that have been posted in the chat box, and we just emphasize on them as we wait for any individual who might have a question to ask, raises their hand for that matter. So number one, will you give a certificate of participation to claim CPD hours? Yes. We No, for this particular session, no, not yet. Maybe in our subsequent webinars, we'll consider the same. The next question, is withholding applicable on interest paid to a foreign financial institute for a loan on the purchase of a Uganda asset? If so, at what rate? Over to you, Ankit.
Bhumi, thank you, Bhumi. This has been clarified by Mr. Shah. So, just to align ourselves, I see only one question remaining unanswered from the chat box. It is from the guest who is saying, if VAT WHT on payment, are we have to start deducting on payment of invoices raised in October 21, or we have to deduct on payment of invoices received before October 21? So, gentlemen or woman, just in our understanding, even though if invoices of invoice date pertains to prior to October 21, but payment is being made now, VAT withholding would become applicable because law has been in force since 2018 and has gone through subsequent amendments. So I think we have answered this question.
Bhumi, because you were making a presentation, you may not be able to see the screen, but Mr. Cephas Birunji has raised his hand. Mr. Birunji, Bhumi, if you can unmute Mr. Birunji.
I've already unmuted him.
Yeah.
Mr. Cephas, you can please unmute and raise your question.
For the wonderful presentation. I have two comments. One is in respect of the withholding tax on VAT. As has been explained, the law is in place and the regulations are in place, but URA has not come clearly to publicize this. Personally, I engaged with the URA and I was told that this may not come to pass because one of the accounting firms has engaged with them and explained why it is not practical, especially now that EFRIS is in place. Of course, the feedback I got is not the law is there. So the question is, how are we proceeding with the people who are practitioners in this area? I think we should go beyond this. You as Grant Thornton, we have this presentation. I believe there are some people from URA who are attending. So the practitioners should come out in the press and demand that we get clarity on this, because obviously we are not complying, the law is there, and the URA is not coming clean on this. So I think it should be beyond merely having a webinar. We should be very clear because if we are not fighting, then we are not following the law. And if they are not going to implement it, it should become very clean. But of course, like you saw in respect of some of the waivers of tax, it needs clarity right from the minister, because if it is in the law and you have passed a statutory instrument, how do you withdraw it? So we need that clarity. But unless we are vigilant, we shall have a problem. The other one is in respect of withholding tax, filing of returns. As you may be aware, there was an amendment which seems to suggest that once you have withheld tax, thereafter you become a permanent withholder. When you read the law and see the amendments which came up in section 130 and others. But of course, it can become ridiculous in a situation, for example, where you became a withholder after selling land. If you sold land and rather if you bought land and withheld from the seller, and it is a one-off transaction, how are you expected to continue filing returns when, for example, you are not in business? So that is, to me, an area which needs to be clarified, because the law was amended, but we are not sure why, because the previous provisions were clear as to who is supposed to keep filing returns. But now this amendment seems to suggest that once you have withheld, you have to keep withholding. But at the same time, you also notice that the provisions in respect of withholding tax for sale of land are very unclear as to who is, what, in whose hands is the business asset. Is the law considering that the business asset is in the hands of the buyer or of the seller for there to be an obligation to deduct? And lastly, I think the person from India will give us the best experience on this. I have a challenge because with the software, many times you pay, say, on a credit card. If you are paying for a service, say, to Microsoft or some foreign provider, you have no basis to make a withholding tax. There's no way you can deduct from the person you are paying. The person is deducting actually from you, from a credit card. But on the transaction, you are actually importing a service, and you may be liable to a withholding tax either as VAT on imported service or as a royalty. But how can you do that? There's no way you would ever be able to do it, even if you wanted. And this has not been clarified. So I think if there's an experience from India or some other country where Grant Thornton had that experience, I would be very happy to share that. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Birunji, thank you very much for very valuable inputs what you have given. Because I think you have raised 3-4 points. Let me go on item number 1. You are absolutely right that you are and that is what was presented as well by our presenters, that URA came up with this amendment and the regulations. It was implemented for a few months, then it was stopped. Then again, it has been notified and not publicized. So we, along with you and many others, we are actually lobbying to get a complete clarification on when should this become applicable for the purpose of its compliance. And we will definitely come back to you as soon as we get any formal communication from them about the implication of the same. Regarding the item number 2, maybe I'll ask my colleagues Rikin or Ankit to take on. Rikin or Ankit?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shah. Thank you, Mr. Birunji, as always, for your insightful thoughts. Yes, we practically on that part of business asset, which you mentioned, even while I was referring to my relevant presentation, I mentioned that there has been a contradictory positions being taken by URA, as it means it has to be seen from a perspective of a seller or from a perspective of a buyer. So yes, that remains a gray area, and and you would also agree with me that we have seen an instances where even though the properties are of residential in nature and the individuals are not engaged in the business of trading or renting of those properties, and they sell off the one of property, then also withholding taxes have been slapped on the buyers. So yes, this remains a gray area, and we'll continue to pursue this with URA. Obviously, your guidance is always available to us. And on the second area on payment for international payment, when it comes to paying for a service which is received, let's say from India or anywhere or for any part of the world, in my simple understanding, yes, payments could be made through a credit card, but when we buy this and there is no contract or something or the invoice or something, then at that time we don't have any mechanism to withhold, unfortunately. And yes, it goes into the books of accounts, and then withholding tax becomes the responsibility of a importer without him being adjusting from the payments. These are practical challenges in India. We are not the expert on Indian tax, but what I would like to comment a bit on it, that on the electronic transactions, withholding tax or the taxes have been slapped in the countries like India, and even recently Kenya introduced such kind of a mechanism on digital transactions. But yes, Uganda is yet to come up with such thing, and we have to live with this.
Just to add to what you have said, Ankit, that when it is not possible for the software subscription or similar imported services where we cannot deduct the withholding tax, and yet the law requires us to deduct the withholding tax and also pay the VAT on imported services, my suggestion would be that to remain compliant, the taxpayers who are importing those services should gross up the value of the service and continue remitting the same to the authorities until such time that the authorities have made up their mind and they have appropriately amended the law. Thank you. There is a question, hands raised by Mr. Charnit Singh. Mr. Charnit, let me unmute you. Bhumi, you can help me do that. Thanks.
So he's already unmuted. Mr. Charnit Singh? You will need to
Okay.
unmute. Yeah, he will
Yes.
need to unmute himself because I have already unblocked him for that.
Okay. In the meantime, Mr. Brijesh Patel, if you can go ahead with your question.
Yes. Mr. Brijesh, please unmute.
So if you are having any difficulty in unmuting, you may also use the chat box for any questions or clarification you wish. Thank you.
Mr. Fred, I've unmuted you. Please, you can go ahead.
Bhumi, there seems to be some problem on the app. I think some of the users are unable to do it.
Yes, what I was saying that in a scenario where 100% has been paid to a supplier, and this supplier is unable to give the 100% supply, and he gives an invoice which is less than 100%, then how shall we be able to account for the tax in this scenario? Is my question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Fred. Ankit, Rikin, please.
So, sir, what I understand that you have a tax invoice for full value, but the goods for that value or that portion has not come. Is that what you are trying to say, or there are subsequently after the supply there has been a sales return or a purchase return? Mr. Fred, have I understood you correctly?
What I was saying that if a supplier has been paid 100%, we have made 100% payment to the supplier, and this supplier is unable to supply the 100% and gives invoice which is short of the 100%, gives invoice which is short of the 100%, then how can we handle the tax implication in this? Am I understood?
Yes, please. Okay,
Mm.
like mentioned before, the practical implications are yet to come out, but there must be, there should be a mechanism to account for such kind of a scenario. It's a good question, and we shall definitely note it down. And you can drop your email ID. Once we receive a better clarification on the modalities, like adjustments in credit through a credit notes or debit notes can be made or not, we will be able to definitely answer you.
Okay. Then secondly, there are suppliers who are supplying above 37.5 of their supplies, and they are not VAT registered, neither are they withholding exempted. We need to take us through that also. How shall we be handling it? And there are other supplying scenarios where such persons are not agreeing on the withholding tax. Probably they have discussed, they have agreed on the price, which is net of taxes. So the handling of such scenarios also we needed to be taken through of that. Supplies above 37.5.
Yeah, so obviously as a designated agent, you will never come to know whether your supplier is making a taxable sale of 37.5 million in any calendar 3 months. However, the law says that if you are buying for more than 37.5 million from any supplier in a calendar 3 months, obviously you would come to know that his overall sale is more than 37, which is the threshold, is 37.5 million in any calendar 3 years. Sorry, 3 months. So at that time, you are required to assume that he is a registered VAT taxpayer, and you have to assume that all the price that he has charged you in the invoice is VAT inclusive price. And after calculating that VAT portion, you need to deduct 6% and deposit the same to URA.
What else I needed from your side is how are we considering this? Are we grossing it up on the net amount of the invoice issued, or we have to calculate and find what would be the proportion for the VAT, and the net amount is what we shall compute the withholding tax or the VAT accordingly. If I'm given in a scenario, if I'm given an invoice of 37.5, assuming that's the actual. So what would be the VAT proportionate?
Mr. Fred, as we said, that 37.5 million, you have to assume that is VAT inclusive. You have to back calculate the VAT portion, and you have to deduct 6% of the gross taxable amount from that.
Mr. Fred,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. In case of any further clarification required, you can always approach us. Before Mr. Ramesh can ask the question, I would like to respond to Mr. Charnit Singh. Mr. Charnit, as I explained on the chat box, that any resident individual who has received a dividend income from the company on which the withholding tax has been deducted, that withholding tax is a final tax on the dividend income. So the dividend income is not subjected to tax in his individual capacity, and therefore you should you should not consider dividend received from a company on which 15% withholding tax has been deducted as a taxable income. So you will not be there will be no need to pay any additional tax on the same. Hope that clarifies to you. Mr. Ramesh, you can go next, please. Rameshi, did you manage to unmute?
Wonderful seminar, webinar. So I have a form and I registered as a VAT as agro processing, and I'm setting up a factory to process the cassava. So now I'm building a factory. So the contractor is giving me the bills with VAT. So do you think that when I'm making payment, I should deduct a 6%, though I'm not a VAT agent? So I need to deduct 6%?
Mr. Ramesh Babu, thank you for the question. This regulation, VAT withholding regulations, are applicable to VAT designated agents, the list that has been issued in May 2020 by Ministry of Finance. And there are 1,025 taxpayers who are designated as agents. Only those taxpayers have to deduct this 6% VAT portion from the customers, from the supplier's payment, and deposit the same to URA. So to answer your questions, if it yours is a new company registered and it is not on the list of VAT designated agents, you don't need to deduct.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any more questions? Okay, maybe we could look into the chat box and see if we have any new questions that we need to attend to.
Yes, we will be able to send the VAT withholding tax agents list by email to all our clients. We shall share it. Thank you.
We last month we sent a alert on VAT withholding, which was inclusive of this list as an attachment. And obviously it has the alert has gone to our existing clients. So that is the probably reason that you have not received the same. What we can do is the same alert along with the VAT withholding designated agent and the exempt VAT withholding exempt taxpayers can also be shared again along with the presentations that our BDM team is going to share with all the attendees of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rikinjo. Let's go to the chat box once again. Definitely, I'm seeing emails with, messages with regards to the presentation. Like mentioned, we are definitely going to share it on email just after this presentation. If you have not registered for the webinar, please do so. Please do share with me the email ID on the chat box, or you can email it to us, on tax@eug.gt.com, and we'll be able to share the presentation. As long as we have your emails, you'll definitely have the presentation, as well as we're also going to upload this recording on our YouTube channel. So anyone can, can go to YouTube and look for Grant Thornton Uganda and can access this recording for the same. So at this point, unless there are any more questions, so I'm saying DTA Uganda has entered into. Could you share the list? Yes, Tony, we're definitely going to share the list with you. Thank you, Mr. Muhammad, for sharing your email with us. I'll definitely capture it in our registration link and share the same with you. Let me just look into the chat box if we have. So we have a hand raised from Elena. Elena, please unmute yourself.
Good morning, everyone. This is Valerie, actually. I'm just using Elena's registration card to participate. What we wanted to clarify again, in our business, we actually do purchase quite a lot of parts from the local suppliers who are not VAT registered, or even in some cases don't have the TIN number. Of course, these expenses are not reflected in EFRIS accordingly, And what we wanted to know is when it comes to the final audit by URA, those purchases, which probably maybe 10 or 15% of our overall business, will they be recognized for income tax purposes? Thank you.
Ankit, you would like to take on?
Yes, Valerie, thank you very much for your question. Income tax, yes. First of all, there needs to be there are two aspects which needs to be kept in mind. You don't have an IFRS invoice from first of all, the any purchase of over and above Uganda shillings 5 million from a non-tin holder is not allowed as an expenditure for income tax purpose. So before we go on to IFRS and all those things, this is the criteria as per section 22, which needs to be kept in mind.
Ankit, thank you very much for your answer. The amount of 5 million, is it per supplier or is it per month? Could you please clarify?
Yes, Valerie, it is in one transaction. Per supplier, one transaction.
Per supplier, one transaction. And what would be the monthly threshold?
I am saying per transaction, per supplier, 5 million Uganda shillings. Monthly threshold is not there. It has to be on transaction basis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ankit and Valerie. Any more questions from anyone? Please feel free to raise your hand or even unmute. I'm seeing a hand raised from Mr. Brijesh. You'll need to unmute, press on the unmute button, and you'll be able to.
Hello. Hello, Bhumi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Bhumi. Okay, now my question is, we have some painters who are as an individuals and who does as a painting which falls under the 37.5 million thresholds during the, and those are not even registered with the team. However, as Mr. Ankit mentioned, we always get their bill always less than the 5 million. So we told the and when any bill comes more than it, we withhold the tax on that. But how can we withhold VAT on it if they are not registered for the TIN? Or is it mandatory for them to have a register for TIN? Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Hitesh, first of all, I would like to know that are you a designated VAT agent? Like it is there, your company's name is there on the list. First, we have to check that.
I'm not so sure. I haven't checked it.
Yeah, so I request you to check that first. And yes, if you are a designated agent appearing on that list, you need to deduct that if the supply is more than 37.5 million for any calendar 3 months, you need to deduct and you need to deposit it. And that has to be entered with, understood with your suppliers that this is the onus of deducting this VAT is upon you as a receiver of the goods or service. So we don't want obviously any issues from URA because it is under your onus. So we need to explain this to the suppliers and we need to deduct this VAT withholding and deposit the same to URA, and we have to tell them that now you have to get the credit from URA after you get yourself registered. So this is basically the whole purpose of URA or the governing body to get everyone, all the taxpayers who are required to be registered, they have to push or encourage all these taxpayers to be registered.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. I'm seeing a hand from Elena again. Elena?
Again, this is Valerie. The question
Apologies.
is again related. to, yes. The question is again related to local purchases. Mr. Ankit mentioned the threshold of 5 million per transaction. We just would like to get some more light on this. What is transaction? Is it, for example, if we have a transaction of 10 million from the same supplier and we split it into 4 different invoices and we make 4 different payments, how would that be treated? Thank you.
Okay, Valerie, again, see, when I took, when I was taking all of us through WHT presentation, I also emphasized on aggregate payments. Yeah. Now, if in one supply, it could be reasonably ascertained that in a one supply, the value is more than 5 million Uganda shillings, and it has just been broken for purpose of A, B, C, D, E, then the 22M means for disallowance of expenses over and above 5 million Uganda shillings triggers in. So in your case, per transaction needs to be seen that if there is an invoice for 2.5 million Uganda shillings for a service which was taken in October 2021, then it will not fall into that criteria. Now say in December again you go ahead and take another service and again get an invoice for 2.5, not fall into the criteria. So that is how it needs to be looked upon. But we are available for detailed explanation. You can approach us. You are very much welcome.
I would just like to add, Valerie, yes, as a taxpayers, we are smart, but as an authority, they are becoming also smarter these days. And the genuineness of the transactions, broken down as you have suggested, will be looked into by the authority, and they will always have a right to question. And you have to then prove that why these transactions were broken down into the, below the threshold. So rather to comply the law rather than going for the explanation. That is what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much. I'm seeing another hand. Mr. Brijesh, please go ahead.
Bhumi, it is Mr. Hitesh.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Hitesh, please go through.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. You see, this is regarding this threshold of 5 million. We are in agriculture business, and these peasant farmers, they always bring their goods which are over 5 million. And these are villagers, they don't have TIN number. Now, what is the solution? Because you can't force them to have TIN number. And if you don't buy from the farmers, then they suffer. So what is the solution now?
Mr. Hitesh, good afternoon, and thank you for your question. Quite relevant, quite important. I think what is important is for you as an association to continue lobbying with the authorities and ask them to amend or issue the guidelines that this may not be applicable for agricultural supplies. As you are aware that previously they had brought in the withholding tax on agricultural supplies at the rate of 1%, and after a lot of lobbying by the associations, by the outgrowers, they decided to remove that provision which they had introduced. So you and all other businesses in that industry should continue doing the same.
No, but now okay, you being our auditors of Genus Association, can you help us to get that thing revoked if we approach you?
Yeah, sure. 100% we will make all the necessary attempts.
Okay, then we'll come and meet you.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I think we would like to close this session here now. So I would like to thank you once again for sparing your valuable time to attend this webinar. Any more questions, please feel free to email us at tax@eug.gt.com. We'll be able to answer them there. And also I request you to please, subscribe to our mailing list to ensure that you receive the latest insights, alerts, and, all the communications that we are making public. We're making them public. And wish you a very, very great weekend ahead. Also, happy Independence holiday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bhumi. Thank you for moderating this session, and we really appreciate the actions by the MCBD Department of Grant Thornton. Thank you.
Thank you all, and I would like to make a point that at one point of time we have an attendance of more than 200 participants. So we always, we are too much encouraged by this much participation, and going forward in the subsequent webinars, we also request you to participate in the same huge number. Thank you so much. Bye. Take care.